All right, diving in today, and let's talk belly fat. It's one of those things. It's like we all kind of know it's not good, but do we really get why?
It's like one of those things you hear about everywhere you turn.
Right.
Magazine articles, social media, and then, of course, all those YouTube videos. It can get pretty overwhelming.
Totally. So that's what we're doing today, breaking it all down. We've got some solid resources lined up, articles from the Mayo Clinics, specifically focusing on belly fat in men and women, some interesting stuff from YouTube, transcripts from Dr. Eric Berg, Dr. Mary Claire Haver, and then just some general notes and tips on, actually losing belly
A
fat.
lot of different perspectives.
Yeah, because, it can be kind of tricky to sort through all the noise and figure out, okay, what really matters for me? So our mission today is to extract what's actually useful from all of this information, right?
Exactly. We want to get to the bottom of what causes belly fat, the real dangers, and the things that actually work to reduce it. No more getting lost in the weeds, just the stuff you need to know.
Love it. So first things first, right? What exactly are we talking about when we say belly fat? I mean, is all belly fat the same?
That's a great question to start with because, it's not just about having a bit of a tummy. It goes deeper than that, literally. So we've got two main types here. We've got subcutaneous fat, which is that pinchable fat right under the skin.
That's the one we all know and love.
Right, exactly. But then there's this other type of fat called visceral fat, and that's the one that really causes problems. It's deep inside your abdomen, wrapped around your organs.
Okay, so that's the real troublemaker, that visceral fat. So when we hear about all these health risks associated with belly fat, that's what we're mainly talking about.
Yeah, that's the primary culprit. Visceral fat is linked to a whole bunch of serious health issues, and this is important to note. It affects both men and women equally.
Right, because sometimes there's this misconception that it's like a guy problem.
Yeah, but it's definitely not. So what are we talking about here? Well, high blood pressure, unhealthy cholesterol levels, sleep apnea, and a significantly higher risk of heart disease. And it doesn't stop there.
Wow. That's already a lot to worry about.
Right. And then you add in the increased risk of type 2 diabetes, some types of cancer, stroke, fatty liver disease.
Okay, I'm seeing a pattern here.
Yeah, and the scariest part is visceral fat also increases your risk of dying prematurely from any cause. So it's not just about how your clothes fit. This is serious stuff.
That's a pretty compelling reason to pay attention. So what causes this belly fat buildup in the first place? And is it different for men and women?
Well, there are some general factors that apply to everyone. First, it's really all about energy balance, the classic calories in versus calories out.
Yeah, we've all heard that one before.
Right. But it's true. If you consistently eat more calories than you burn, your body stores that excess energy as fat. And as we age, things get trickier.
Age, oh, the joys of getting older.
Exactly. We naturally lose muscle mass with age, which slows down our metabolism. Becomes easier to gain weight, and that weight often settles right in the belly area.
Oh, great. So not only do we have to worry about wrinkles, we have to worry about our metabolism slowing down. Fantastic.
And then, of course, there's genetics. Some people are just predisposed to carrying more weight or storing fat in certain areas. It's not always fair, but it's the hand we're dealt.
Okay, so those are kind of the universal factors. Now, what about specifically for men? What should they be aware of?
Well, according to the Mayo Clinic, as men hit their 50s, they need to adjust their calorie intake because their metabolism isn't what it used to be. We're talking about roughly 200 fewer calories a day compared to when they were in their 30s.
So basically, the metabolism starts taking a little siesta, and we've got to adjust accordingly.
Pretty much. And then there's the classic beer belly. It's not just a myth, although it's not always just beer. Any kind of excessive alcohol intake adds extra calories. And those calories tend to be stored as belly fat.
So moderation is key, I guess.
Exactly. The general guideline for men is up to 2 drinks a day. Anything more than that, and you're increasing your risk.
All right, noted. Now, what about women? Anything specific for them in terms of contributing factors?
For women, hormones play a really significant role, especially those changes that happen around menopause.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole other ballgame.
Right. As estrogen levels decrease, it can actually shift where your body stores fat. Often, it leads to more fat accumulating in the belly, even if your overall weight stays the same. Dr. Haver talked about this quite a bit.
Yeah, a lot of women notice that shift after menopause, for sure. So how do we actually know if our belly fat is in a dangerous range? How do we measure it?
The simplest and most effective way is to measure your waist circumference. It's pretty easy to do.
Okay, good, because I'm not great with complicated measurements.
No, this is super simple. All you need is a flexible tape measure. You stand up straight, wrap the tape around your bare abdomen just above your hip bones.
So not like right under your chest.
No, a bit lower than that. Make sure the tape is snug but not too tight, and then it's level all the way around. Then relax, breathe out normally, and take the measurement. No sucking in your stomach or pulling the tape too tight.
Got it. Okay, so what numbers should we be looking out for? What's considered unhealthy for men and women?
For men, a waist measurement over 40 inches, that's about 102 centimeters, is generally considered to be too high and puts you at a higher risk for all those health problems we talked about earlier. For women, the threshold is a little lower, over 35 inches or 89 centimeters. And basically, the larger your waist circumference, the higher your risk.
Got it. Okay, so we've got a good understanding of what belly fat is, why it's a problem, and how to measure it. Now, the big question, what can we actually do about it? Let's talk about diet.
All right, so when it comes to diet, everything we've looked at really points to one main thing. Focus on eating whole, unprocessed foods. This means loading up on fruits, vegetables, whole grains, all those good things.
The stuff we all know we should be eating, but, life happens.
I hear you. But really, prioritizing those nutrient-rich foods is key. And then choosing lean protein sources, things like fish, low-fat dairy.
And what about protein sources like beans and lentils?
Yeah, those are great options too. Plant-based protein can be a fantastic part of a healthy diet. And it's not just about what you eat, but also what you limit. So try to cut back on processed meats, like bacon and sausage, and saturated fats, which are often found in fatty meats and full-fat dairy products.
So basically, less of the processed stuff and more of the natural stuff.
Exactly. But don't forget about healthy fats. Things like avocados, nuts, olive oil. Those are good for you in moderation. It's all about finding the right balance.
Right. Okay. And then another thing that comes up all the time is portion control. Even if you're eating healthy foods, portion size still matters, right?
Absolutely. The Mayo Clinic emphasizes this a lot. It's about being mindful of how much you're eating, even with healthy foods. Pay attention to portion sizes, both at home and when you're eating out. Share meals, take leftovers home. Just be conscious of it.
Small changes can add up, right?
They really can. Another really simple swap is ditching the sugary drinks. Soda, juice, even those fancy coffee drinks. They're loaded with empty calories that often end up as belly fat. Stick with water, unsweetened tea, things like that.
Easy enough. Dr. Haver really stressed the importance of fiber. Why is that such a big deal for belly fat?
Well, fiber is actually pretty amazing. It helps you feel full and satisfied after eating, which can naturally help with managing your calorie intake. She recommends at least 25 grams a day for women and 32 grams for men. And, there are so many delicious ways to get fiber.
Yeah, like what? Give me some ideas.
Berries are fantastic, beans and lentils, chia seeds, flax seeds. They're all packed with fiber and pretty easy to incorporate into your meals.
Good to know. And then there's the sugar question. How much does sugar itself contribute to belly fat?
Yeah, added sugar is definitely a big culprit. That's the sugar that's added during processing and cooking, not the naturally occurring sugars in fruits and things like that. Dr. Haver suggests no more than 25 grams of added sugar per day, and she particularly cautions against sugary drinks because of their high fructose content, which the liver can easily turn into fat.
So it's not just about avoiding the obvious sugary stuff. We've got to be aware of those hidden sugars, too.
Exactly. It's about reading labels, being informed.
Yeah.
And, protein also gets a lot of attention when we talk about losing weight.
Yeah, it seems like everyone's always talking about protein.
Rightly so. It's
Right.
crucial. Protein helps you feel full and satisfied, so you're less likely to overeat. This is a big point in Dr. Haver's advice, particularly for women. She stressed the importance of getting enough protein throughout the day, not just at one meal, to help regulate hormones.
And how much protein are we talking about here?
She suggests aiming for 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of lean body mass. Might sound a bit technical, but it's something you can figure out pretty easily.
Okay, so we'll put some resources in the show notes to help people calculate that. Now, Dr. Berg also talked about something called beginner keto. What's that all about?
Yeah, so his approach is all about significantly reducing carbs, basically keeping them below 20 grams a day, mostly from leafy green vegetables. He recommends moderate protein intake, about palm-sized portions with each meal, and then actually a higher intake of healthy fats, especially at the beginning, to help you feel full as your body adjusts to burning fat for fuel instead of carbs.
It sounds like a pretty big shift in how you're eating.
It is, for sure. But he suggests starting slowly and working your way up to it.
Okay, so we've covered diet pretty extensively. Let's move on to exercise. What are the best strategies for burning that stubborn belly fat?
The most effective approach is to combine different types of exercise. Regular aerobic exercise is essential. The guidelines from the Department of Health and Human Services recommend at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity activity every week.
So that's things like brisk walking, swimming, cycling, right?
Exactly. Those are great examples. And then strength training is really important too. You want to aim for at least 2 strength training sessions a week.
And why is strength training so important?
Well, it helps you build and maintain muscle mass, which in turn boosts your metabolism and helps you burn more calories even when you're not working out. Both the Mayo Clinic and Dr. Berg mentioned high-intensity interval training, or HIIT, as a really effective way to burn belly fat,
Yeah, HIIT workouts are super popular these days. They seem to be everywhere.
and for good reason. They're a great way to get a really intense workout in a short amount of time. You alternate between short bursts of intense exercise and brief recovery periods. It's very efficient. Dr. Haver had some specific advice about cardio, though.
Oh, right. She talked about something called Zone 2, right?
Exactly. She recommends aiming for a heart rate within that zone 2 range during your cardio workouts for about 30 minutes, 5 days a week. It's a moderate intensity level that's considered ideal for burning fat. And one thing that's really important to remember is that you can't spot reduced fat.
Meaning, you can't just do a bunch of crunches and expect your belly fat to magically disappear.
Exactly. Crunches are great for strengthening your abdominal muscles, but they won't specifically target belly fat. To reduce belly fat, you need to reduce overall body fat, and that's where diet and a well-rounded exercise program come in.
It makes sense. So, diet and exercise are crucial, but are there other lifestyle factors that affect belly fat?
Oh, absolutely. Sleep is huge. Aim for 7 to 8 hours a night. When you're sleep deprived, your hormones get out of whack, and that can lead to increased appetite and a slower metabolism.
Yeah, I definitely feel that when I don't get enough sleep, I'm way more likely to reach for the snacks.
Right. It's your body's way of trying to compensate for the lack of energy. And stress is another big one. Chronic stress can lead to elevated cortisol levels, and cortisol is known to contribute to belly fat storage.
So, managing stress is just as important as watching what you eat and exercising.
Exactly. It's all connected. And as we talked about earlier, limiting alcohol is also important. And for smokers out there, smoking is actually linked to increased abdominal fat.
Okay, so those are all things to be mindful of. Were there any other interesting tips from Dr. Berg and Dr. Haver that we should mention?
Yeah, Dr. Berg had a couple of unique suggestions. He recommends starting your meals with a large salad,
How large are we talking about here?
like really large, at least 7 cups of raw vegetables. He believes this can help you feel fuller and prevent overeating later in the meal.
Wow, that's a lot of salad.
It is, but it's packed with nutrients and fiber. He also suggests choosing protein sources that come with some natural fat rather than super lean proteins.
So, like a salmon fillet instead of a chicken breast?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
He believes this can have a gentler impact on your insulin levels.
Interesting. And what about combining keto with intermittent fasting? He talked about that too, right?
He did. He believes this can amplify the fat-burning effects by further lowering insulin and getting your body into a deeper state of ketosis. He suggests starting by skipping breakfast, so you have a 12-hour eating window and a 12-hour fasting window. Then you can gradually shorten the eating window over time.
Okay, so there's definitely a progression there. It's not something you just jump into all at once.
Exactly.
Meh.
He did offer a few cautions, though. He warned against going overboard with dietary fat during a fat loss phase. He said your body might just burn that dietary fat instead of tapping into your stored body fat.
Makes sense. It's like, hey, easy access here. Why bother with the reserves?
Pretty much. And he also emphasized the importance of making sure you're still getting enough nutrients when you're eating less frequently, things like B vitamins and electrolytes. He even suggested adding sea salt to your diet to help with electrolyte balance.
Okay, good to know. And what about Dr. Haver? What were some of her key takeaways?
She really hammered home the importance of spreading your protein intake throughout the day for balanced hormones, especially for women. Again, that 1 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of lean body mass is a good guideline. She talked about intermittent fasting, specifically the 168 method, where you fast for 16 hours and eat within an 8-hour window.
I've heard of that one. It's pretty popular.
Yeah, it can be really effective for some people, but she stressed that it's not for everyone and to be cautious about going to extremes with fasting. She also talked about the potential benefits of probiotics and fermented foods like yogurt, kimchi, and miso for gut health. And, like Dr. Berg, she reminded listeners to be wary of hidden sugars in processed foods.
Yeah, that's a good reminder for all of us. So basically, it sounds like a lot of this comes down to consistency and making those sustainable lifestyle changes that we can actually stick with over time.
Exactly. It's not about quick fixes or fad diets. It's about finding what works for you and making gradual changes that you can maintain for the long haul. And as always, if you have any underlying health conditions or concerns, it's best to check with your doctor or a qualified healthcare professional before making any major changes.
Absolutely. So, to sum up, we've learned that belly fat, particularly that deep visceral fat, is a real health risk for both men and women. And tackling it requires a multi-pronged approach, combining a balanced diet rich in whole foods, regular exercise that includes both cardio and strength training, and paying attention to things like sleep and stress management.
And even though women experience unique hormonal changes, especially after menopause, that can contribute to belly fat,
Yeah.
the fundamental strategies for reducing it are pretty much the same for everyone.
Exactly. So, as always, the real question is, what can you take away from this and apply to your own life?
Exactly. Think about this. Considering everything we've talked about today, what's one small sustainable change you could make right now that would set you on the path towards a healthier waistline and overall well-being? It could be as simple as adding an extra serving of veggies to your dinner tonight, taking a quick walk during your lunch break, or swapping out that soda for a glass of water. Even the smallest steps can make a difference in the long run.
Love that. All right, folks, that's our deep dive on belly fat. We hope you found it helpful, and as always, thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for joining us.